Hello, I'm Julia Cordova. Thank you so much for subscribing to my YouTube channel and liking my videos. I really appreciate it. So last week I talked about it potentially being a buy the effing dip week, and there were two supports that I was looking at. One was that gap support between the 4015 to 4020 area, and the next being consensus support at 3800 to 3900. And guess what? It sliced right through that gap support into that consensus area, the very middle of it. It came back up and closed exactly within that gap that I talked about. So that gap is serving as support slash resistance, but right now we're in the smack dab middle of it. So what's going to happen this week? Well, we left two gaps last week. One was that we opened the week down and we never got back to the previous close from the week before. And the second was on open Thursday at 6 o'clock, because there's like an hour break when futures are closed. So at 6 o'clock, we gapped up and then we just never came back down to test the area we gapped up from. So usually those hourly gaps do not remain open too long. So we've got one above and one below. And basically the trading action this week will depend on which one happens first and what we see as a price action for that area. Now, last week I also thought because silver wasn't reacting well and GDX wasn't reacting well as gold, I thought it might potentially be an area where metals would come down. We'd have the opportunity to buy them, and then optimally they would have gone back up. But unfortunately, when they came down, they sort of gold oscillated at that area where I had a bunch of supports and there was an MA and there was it oscillated there, and then it just it wasn't able to hold that. So it closed the week down. Technically, gold is bearish, silver's bearish, GDX is bearish. However, wait till you see my silver chart this week. It is the closest thing to chart porn I can think of right now. Anyway, because it's really cool. Okay, with that said, let's talk charts. You ready? Whoop. All right. I'm excited for this. I can't believe I said that. All right. So this is the ES weekly chart. You can see, so I made the bull flag channel bolder this week just so you can see the price action here. You can see we breached below it, kind of held by the dotted. I'm going to call that close enough. Not horrible anyway. And then it closed back above here inside of this weekly gap from this area. However, I put this on here, even though this is a weekly chart. You know what I do when I'm trading during the week is I take these supports and I will usually draw them horizontally across my platforms that I'm trading on so that I don't have to constantly refer to it. Just as an FYI, that's what I do. But anyway, so this hourly gap here is what I was talking about. This would be, if it were to hit, it would be a higher low. So we'll have to see whether that happens. And then below that, support here at the bottom of the bull flag channel, and then just below, right? And then below that, new line, who does, at 3801.75. Okay, now on the upside, see this gap that was left? I did not draw that in, but I probably will for myself later. Just didn't want to make my chart busy. Oh my. Anyway, so above this 4079 area, which is the immediate resistance above the gap, and we'll sort of deal with that before I think potentially we might test the buy or die. Now, if we get above the buy or die, this thumbs down line, it's a purple thumbs down line, has now been retested almost perfectly twice, okay? And so if it gets retested again, it's also this week on the intersection of the bull flag channel. So that will be a very difficult resistance for us to break from, and I'll just be super interested if we get there. If we do, I will update on Substack for you. All right, now let us look at NQ weekly as well. Even better. So again, I bolded these bull flag channels, and you can see that almost just a little washout below here, but we bounced really well off of that level. Also left a gap on NQ. Here it is. And so for this week, if it did back test here, this would be a support, this gap that was left on the hourly. Again, I added this same orange line from this channel that was in place for freaking ever. So I did it again because see how it's perfect here and then it didn't hold. Let's see if we act as support again, if we back test that. So that's the support line I'm watching in general. Now, this pink line, which I've used before to determine breakouts, can also determine whether or not it's uneffing itself, right? And we didn't quite get above that last week. I was hoping to see it, but didn't happen. Anyway, this week it is a little bit lower at 12449.75. And then the real action, though, I think will come. See how these two blue lines have interacted really well before. There's not a whole lot of price action going on, not a whole lot of resistance or support, I should say, between them. But in the past, these blue lines have acted very well. So 12730.75 is the initial resistance above the pink. And then above that, 13146. And then things get a little more interesting because I do think if we get above this 13146, we'll probably get to 13343.50 and then see from there. So we'll have to watch how the week goes, but that's what I'm looking for. Let's look at RTY. Okay, so here is the weekly chart for RTY. You can see same dealio as the other indices. Nice little hammer candle. Not the most beautiful, but pretty beautiful compared to what we've been looking at. Look at this mess. Okay, so last week we got to my measured move on Wednesday. And for me, that was like an early warning detection signal because just because something gets to a measured move doesn't mean it won't go lower or, if the measured move is lower, it doesn't mean it won't go lower. It just means that, check it off the OCD list. We finally got there, right? But in this particular case, because we've been going down, 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 for me, once you meet a measured move after such momentum, that means that generally speaking, you're going to get a bounce. And we did initially, came back down. Of course it did. Of course it did. It came back down, washed out under the support, and then whooped it whooped up, all the way up. All right. So, but however, bigger picture, if you look at the daily, and you're always going to watch the smaller time frames first when you're looking for a trend change. If you look at the daily, we didn't quite get back above this 9 MA, which would be the first signal as a close on the daily above the 9 MA. Oh boy, and we do have a gap here, same as the other indices. So we'll be watching to see whether or not we can get back into this channel, first of all, which is 1791.3. It's just a hair above where we closed. It just has to open flattish for us to have a shot at this, right? But let's see if we can close the day back above there, and then we'll use these supports as potential back tests. And above this key here, 1883.5, it's going to start to look to me like it might get bullish short term at least. All right, let's look at Bitcoin. Okay, so if you follow me on Telegram, you saw that I very rarely talk about crypto trades. I just kind of usually say, well, here's what the chart looks like to me. But you saw me buy BTC. If you follow me on Telegram, I'll put the link down below, or you have it in your Substack, so check it out. But anyway, for that, we did basically, I was looking at my phone as opposed to a real chart, and the price line was there, and I was like, guys, this looks like, hello, this looks like I don't have to be a chart genius to know that's support. And of course we had breached it, but then we'd gotten back kind of above it. And I was like, you know what? I bet, it might go lower, and it did, but I bet it's a high probability bounce area from here. And potentially, now these are shoulders of like not normal people because they're high, but potentially maybe this is a giant head and shoulders. Anyway, I think it will go probably up back to this ambulance line so that it look like it might be. And so people will start talking about it, and then that's a pretty good profit if I wanted to take half there, right? And I figured, worst case scenario, it dipsy doodles here, and now we know if it closes below this orange area, no bueno. All right, let's look at Ethereum. Oy, oy, oy. Okay, so I didn't have that same vertical support inside of Ethereum. I don't know. I don't know. But anywho, it's kind of just consolidating between supports. So it was not able, you can see how well this line works, right? It was not able to close above this pink line and then pooped, but not quite to my support. I don't know. Anyway, a back above 2311, bullish. Down here, obviously bearish, but that would be support. Okay, now, Doge. Well, I didn't talk about it, but I bought a little more there too when it pooped. But anyway, let's see. So here we're still not bullish. We're still not above this pink line. Need closes above this pink line. Yes, I sold what I bought because I just want to now trade around a core position and try to get myself to positive area. I still believe in it. I still think it's bullish longer term. I still think it has the most utility of any of the cryptos, at least in terms of transactional value. But you know what? I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not a crypto person, so that's just me. Okay, anyway. It needs to get back above this basically 9.5 cents, and therefore probably the 9 MA were to get there, and then it'll start to look more constructive. It's not constructive until then. It's really not constructive until it's back above 16 cents or so, which is the key. But we'll watch it, see what happens. I remain hodling at this time. At least the core position. Let's talk about GDX. Okay, so I wanted to know actually why nobody called me out on this being a triple bottom, not a bottom. Nobody said that to me, but it doesn't matter. I wanted to use it as a case study when we went to the moon, and then I could talk about why this was a triple bottom. But so last week, I thought we were going to meet it again, and then I was like, oh no, please don't let it be every other triple bottom, not a bottom. But we got to right within that area, and I just usually eyeball this, so I'd like to say there's a science, but basically when you're looking at a double bottom, I'm not going to call this a triple bottom. When you look at a double bottom, whenever we come back, I call it the bend and snap. We come back just to within, if it gets any closer, like here, for example, 29.29, it is almost definitely, most likely, I can't say definitely, but most likely going to go to the double bottom. That would be not good, and therefore even if it bounced, it will probably go lower from there. However, we stopped short of that at 29.74. This area where I said I was going to double, I did, and actually added some GDXU there. Woo, triple leverage. And then the next week, next day, Friday, when it bounced, I got rid of some of that because I'm not an idiot, right? It does not look bullish at this time. I wanted to make sure I made some money off of that at least. And then unfortunately I was looking, so remember a long time ago, for those people who followed me a long time ago, this dotted dashed pink has been super important, super duper important, and we didn't quite close back above it last week. So for this week, that's what, it can come back down here, of course, but to be bullish, it has to stay out of this gravity zone, in my opinion, because even if it gets to this lightning support, its lightning support is not enough below this to give me high confidence. So it's really make or break this week. As a bull, I want it to close above 31.27 minimally, optimally above this key area in the mid 32s to 33. And then we'll see what happens from there. The good news is there's some gaps here that I think will fill. The bad news is there's also some gaps way down here from 2020 that we don't want to fill because, yeah, if they filled, it would be a great buy opportunity. But right now, I don't want them to fill because I want it to go up. Yeah. Okay. So that's what's going on there. Let's look at juicy gold. All right. Also, oh boy. Now, this is the weekly chart. These are the MAs. It is below all of the MAs. There was hardly a bounce, a little bit on Friday, but not enough to be like, wow, look at that candle. There's hope, right? However, blur your eyes just for a second, and you can see this is potentially a triangle. Okay, here to here. I'm gonna make this actually. Let me do it, and let me just do this to make it more obvious. There you go. So this is potentially a triangle. This is potentially a back test of the triangle, right? Whoop, whoop, whoop. I don't know. But now 1796.8 becomes critical for this week, as is this dashed line at 1788.9. There's not a lot going on below it. Okay, I could search for something, but I choose not to at this time. So not a lot going on below that. Ooh, let's look at silver. Okay, so silver also looks extremely unfortunate because, you know, if you're looking at this versus triangle into this bigger triangle into this black line, I didn't want it to go below the black line, and it did. And then when it did, I was like, oh no, because that's that gravity that I talked about from that 21.7-ish area last week to the double bottom here. I knew if it got below 21.7, it had a high probability of going to the triple bottom, not a bottom. And then once it does that, it's probably going lower. And it did. So it lived up to its name of the triple bottom, not a bottom last week. And I was looking here and I was like, all right, well, you know, it's bearish, obviously. However, what I often do is, you know, sometimes triangles turn into bull flags. And I looked and I was like, you know, this was a pretty good clip where it came up from 12 and change all the way up to what, 30 or so before descending. And I thought, you know what, is this a bull flag? And so what I did was I took this slope and what do you know? Oh my gosh, I have to tell you, it was late at night. It was in the middle of the night because I was doing the Substack and I had procrastinated a little bit. Well, no, I was thinking actually. I wasn't even procrastinating. I was really thinking about what's going to happen this week and I didn't want to do it till I really knew. But anyway, so what I did was I took this slope. I'll show you right before your eyes. Watch. And I moved it and I was like, I wasn't looking, I can't point, but I wasn't looking over here. I was looking over here and I put it at a place where I thought, oh, that makes sense. And holy crap, that's exactly where we back tested on Friday. I think it was Friday. Yeah, Friday. I think it was Friday or Thursday, whatever. Anyway, so I was like, oh, holy crap. And is it the prettiest of bull flags? No, it is not. But I mean, my own rules are, it doesn't have to look perfect as long as it works. So what I did was I added this pink line in here. I added this blue line in here. Same thing here, right? Now that needs to hold, right? So that we have a level of 20.59. And by the way, this is some voodoo going on here. I would not recommend that other people do this. However, it does work for me. But the good news is that we'll know that should price get below 20.39, it's already bearish, okay? But it'll be more bearish and probably go to 18.8, okay? So we have something to look forward to if it bounces, and we have something to look forward to if it does not bounce, because if it does not bounce here, I think it's going way lower than 18.8. I think it's probably going to come all the way back down here to annoy people. I know that because yeah, I love it. Yeah, probably at least down to this black line. All right. So, but isn't this cool? It's like the coolest thing I've ever seen, especially if it holds. Then I'll be like a hero to myself. Okay, let's look at oil. So this is the oil weekly. So from last week, we gapped up, we came back down, and then got exactly to where we started, closing ever so slightly green for the week. This is quite the candle. Anywho, so for this week, I've got immediate support here at 109.97. We're still not above this gap. For me, this gap is getting above this gap and holding there is really important for the continued bullishness of oil. So it's just been consolidating. It broke out. It probably shook a few people loose last week, but let's see if it can get above this one, basically the 113 to 114 area. Let's see if it can happen, and then we'll deal with this next resistance if it comes. On the other hand, if we come back down here again, given this price action, I'm going to say that potentially I do think that if we come back down here, that it might at least be a good scalp to this 20 MA since we didn't touch it. and then potentially even lower. So this will be a very interesting area to watch if it comes down here. This will be a very interesting area to watch if it can finally break above this resistance, gap resistance. Now, as far as XOP goes, finally, my OCD is satisfied that we got a channel back test, and this was pretty freaking perfect. Back tested right off of this channel and then ended right underneath the resistance. I'm really proud of myself. This looks great. Now, this potentially looks like these same sorts of, I mean, it could be, it's a bull flag, right? Potentially, right? So I added the slope this week and I took it and I applied it to this top level here. And now we've got something else to watch. So we closed down here at 133.63. This is the immediate resistance at 136.47. It should, I think, line up with the 9MA. Then we've got this same thing we've been looking at this whole time, 138.47 above that, and bullish breakout above that, I think. Okay, whereas if we get below this 124.53, same thing with this oily thing, then I think because it tried and came back, it's not going to have the energy to do it again. In my opinion, I don't think so. So this 124.53 is going to be critical if it gets there, and potentially bearish below. All right, let's look at Natty. So Natty kind of looks, I mean, same trajectory, right? Woo, woo. Except for because it gapped down, it just could not overcome that energy to get back up to where it started. So right now, it's just, you can see it's consolidating, right? On the RSI, we don't know yet, but potentially on the daily, we're kind of sandwiched in between this 9 and 20 MA. We're above the gap area as we speak, which is not a gap anymore, right? Closed it. But usually still, these gaps in Natty especially like to really be supportive / resistancy. So if we go back below this area, then potentially we'll retest 6.839. And then because again, same deal, we've tried it. I think if we do go all the way back there, I do think there might be a scalp short to be had. However, the measured move, big picture, remains around 11 or so. All right, that's it. Okay, thank you so much. Oh, I'm gonna mute myself big. Thank you so much for subscribing to my YouTube channel and liking my videos. I really appreciate it. And I will see you on the interims. Okay, bye.